Welcome, everybody, to the Soul of the Unexplained. I am your host, Jim Kelgard, and with me today is my very dear friend and my hitchhiker bandmates and my favorite Denver Broncos fan, of course, that is Mr. John Nyberger. John, how are you doing, buddy?
Doing well, sir. Doing
Awesome,
well.
awesome, awesome. You know what's going on right now? We're recording this on Sunday night, February 2nd, folks, and the Grammy Awards are on TV. Now, I know most of you out there that are not really music heads probably couldn't care less about the Grammy Awards, but I, at one time, was a member of the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, and every February I looked forward to for the very specific reason of I got to attend the Grammy Awards being a member of the Academy. And I've got all kinds of fun, crazy stories that I could share with you about my many trips out to LA to attend the Grammy Awards. But I have to be honest, John, this year I have not even looked at who the nominees are, and I probably wouldn't recognize a lot of the names that are on there. So,
I'm the same way. I haven't paid attention to the Grammys since Jethro Tull won Best Metal Album.
oh wow.
Yeah. After that,
Oh,
I was like, this is stupid. This is absolutely worthless. You know,
the last time that I watched the Grammys that I think I genuinely enjoyed it was, gosh, almost 8 or 9 years ago when Daft Punk had their Random Access Memories album, and that
Ooh,
like swept so many of the different categories. And that was, I think that was the last time that I remember watching the Grammys that I genuinely enjoyed watching it because I'm a Daft Punk fan, or I was. I have to speak about them in the past tense now, um, but yeah, music's biggest night, and I will share with you one of my favorite Grammy memories. There was, I want to say this would have been about 2000, either 2005 or 2007, maybe. And of course, it was out in LA. And we're walking down the red carpet. There's whenever they hold the Grammy Awards, there's basically two different kinds of activities that they have there. There's what they call the pre-award telecast or the pre-telecast ceremony, and that's like this 2.5, 3 hour long event where it's not televised, and that's where they reveal the winners of all of them, all of the Grammy categories. And there's something like 120, 130 different categories, like best polka album, best classical album, the stuff that, most people really, unless they have a specific interest, don't really care about. And then they save like the big categories like best new artist, album of the year, record of the year. They save that for the prime time telecast, which happens. So at this pre-telecast ceremony is where there's no assigned seating, so you can literally sit anywhere you want to. And it's really interesting because there's a couple of years that I went. I'm sitting there, maybe about a dozen rows back from the front of the stage, and all of a sudden Tony Bennett comes walking in, like, the Tony Bennett. And it's so surreal because he comes in and he's like, "Hey, young fella, is anybody sitting there?" And I'm like, "No, please help yourself." So I'm like
no,
literally sitting next to Tony Bennett. And then there was one year where, in
yeah,
fact, the last year I attended, Velvet Revolver. Do you remember them?
yeah.
So this was before Slash went back to Guns N' Roses, and so Velvet Revolver come walking in with Matt Sorum, the drummer of Velvet Revolver, and Scott Weiland, who of course has since passed away. Used to be the lead singer of Stone Temple Pilots, and the only one that wasn't there was Slash, and they sat like literally the row right in front of me. It was like so surreal because here you are sitting among these just legends and rock and music icons. And then after that's over, there's a little bit of a time gap to walk from where the LA Convention Center is, which is where they hold the pre-telecast ceremony, to the Staples Center, which is where they hold the actual broadcast, the telecast, the live telecast. And so this one year, the after the pre-telecast ceremony ended, I'm walking down the red carpet that goes from the convention center to the Staples Center, and little did I know, I see this really kind of skinny, long-haired guy walking in front of me with talking to David Foster, who of course is a legendary music producer, worked a lot with Chicago and a lot of bands like that. And
Yep.
turns out that the skinny guy with the dark hair was Steve Vai, like
What the
like
hell?
one of the greatest guitar players of all time, right? Played with David Lee Roth. He was a Zappa protege. I mean, just and so it was just kind of really surreal. So like that's one of my claims to fame is I walked down the red carpet right behind Steve Vai and David Foster.
Lord.
So yeah, so needless to say, John and I are not watching the Grammy Awards tonight. So whoever happens to be nominated, I wish them the best of luck. But if you're at all into music and like, I mean, my life revolves around music. If you ever get the opportunity to go to the Grammy Awards, it's well worth experiencing at least once in your life. So with that, John, let's talk about some. Gosh, there's all kinds of stuff that's going on, particularly in the realm of UAPs. And so let's kind of before we get there, let's take a little detour. And this last weekend was when the VIP tickets just went on sale for PhenomeCon 2025. And last year, and I know that you were a VIP ticket holder last year, as was I and Roger as well. This year, I opted not to do the VIP tickets, but nevertheless, I got to see who some of the speakers are and what some of the activities are, the add-on activities. And I don't know about you, John, but I am really excited about PhenomeCon 2025 coming up. How about you?
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, for me, that's a can't miss event. You got to go. But like you, I kind of decided maybe not trying to get a VIP ticket again. It was really cool, but
Yeah,
it sounds like I mean, you only have like well, I think they said 100 tickets
100 of them. Yep.
and a lot of people all at once trying to get them. We might not even have gotten them anyway if we tried.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Very,
sounds like it was
very
quite a
good point.
stampede.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a great experience. I loved the fact that we had, a special seating area that we were able to sit out up there toward the front of the stage, and we had those little candies and bottles of water and
Yep.
the T-shirt and all that great stuff. But this year I decided to opt for instead of spending the money on the VIP package, I think what I'm going to do is spend my money on more add-on activities. Because last year Roger only and I only did a handful of the add-on activities, so there's a couple more that I think I'm going to try to sign up for this year that I did not sign up for last year. But regular tickets or general admission tickets go on sale this Friday at midnight. Well, I guess we should say Saturday at midnight, February 8th at 12:01 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time or Mountain Standard Time, whichever it is, coming up in just a little less than a week from now. So I'm definitely looking forward to getting my 4-day pass, and I cannot wait for PhenomeCon 2025. It's always a good time to get out to Vernal and to hang out with my fellow Skinwalker Ranch insiders. Which again, John, that's how you and I met. Was this Skinwalker Ranch, the Skinwalker Ranch Insider Family Reunion, which is what Roger and I are calling it now. That this little informal get together that we arrange every year on the eve of PhenomeCon, where we gather at a local restaurant in Vernal for the Skinwalker Ranch insiders and just have a nice, relaxing evening for people to meet up and hang out and network and just have fun and enjoy each other's company before the madness of PhenomeCon begins. And I'm excited to say I'm going to be starting the signups for that in just about 3 days. So looking forward to getting that going.
Can't wait. That's a highlight of the whole week. It really is. That you got to
Yeah.
be there.
Well,
Even though
that's
it's
that's how you and I.
unaffiliated with PhenomeCon,
Mhm.
it's still one of the best events at PhenomeCon.
Well, awesome. I
One of
would.
the best events
I'm I'm
nearby.
biased. I'm biased, but I have to agree because there's really it's the best way that I found to get to meet my fellow Skinwalker Ranch insiders because a lot of people online they only go by their screen name, and so it's like you get to know these people a little bit on the Skinwalker Ranch Insider website, but then when you have the opportunity to meet them in person, I'm happy to say every single person that I have met in person has been even cooler than I thought they were when I interacted with them online. And
Yep.
John, you're a great example of that because you and I met at this event that Roger and I host every year. So
Yep.
you just never know who you're going to meet and just form a great bonds of friendship and a connection with. And I'm for one thing, that's one thing I'm very grateful for was getting to know you, and that's where we met was at that event.
It's funny, you and then Annie C met her
Yeah.
there the first year, and that now you're two of my best friends. So
Yep.
talk
And
to you
I'm a
guys.
Raiders fan. How does
I
that
know
happen?
what the hell. I don't know. I had to
And
file to get an exception for that.
right, right. Well, same here. I mean, come on. I live in enemy territory out here in Utah, which is basically Denver Broncos territory. But
True.
yeah, it's possible. But no, Phenomicon, I'm excited for folks. If you want to learn more about Phenomicon, just simply go to phenomicon.net and you'll be able to learn all about the great speakers. Of course, the cast and crew from Skinwalker Ranch will be there. Nick Pope is coming back, which I'm excited for because I really had a great chance to talk with Nick last year and shake his hand and got a great picture with Nick. And Nick has excellent taste in music, might I add, Mr. Nick Pope. Um, and Dave Politis is coming back. I'm happy to see that. Really like the stuff that Dave has to share with us. Dave Schrader is coming back, and the Cypress Paranormal crew are also coming back. And so
Very cool.
it's looking like we've got a really good start the on what's going to be coming our way with Phenomicon 2025. And
Do
we'll
me a
do
favor. Do me a
what's that?
favor. Do
Sure,
me a favor. This year, remind me to actually take some freaking pictures.
sure.
I
Yeah, I can
never
do that.
remember to do them myself. And then I look at yours, and Michelle took some, and some other people took some, and I've got like three.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
I'll definitely do that. And folks, we'll do an actual episode to kind of preview what's coming up for Phenomicon 2025, probably in the next month or so. And in the past, Roger and I have been able to bring on Bridget Lake, who is one of the amazing organizers of Phenomicon. And so we'll see what we can get going. And speaking of Roger, Roger was actually hoping to join us tonight, John, and unfortunately uh, as luck would have it, he came down with the flu and had to bow out at the last moment. And we were
Yeah.
also hoping to get our fellow hitchhiker bandmate Caleb Hanks to join us, but I've been informed that with our last episode we had with Caleb, we exceeded our number, the amount of profanity that's allowed in one YouTube video. So
Oh, really?
no, no, I'm totally kidding, totally kidding.
I was like, did something happen?
Yeah.
It did.
So
It hit a new high. That's for sure.
right.
Yeah, for your channel at least.
Right, absolutely. So, unfortunately, both Caleb and Roger were not able to join us tonight, but we tip our hats and give our big salute to both Caleb and Roger, and we'll definitely have them both on here before too long, guarantee it. So, with that, John, let's dive in. It seems like literally almost every hour there's some kind of quote unquote news coming across regarding the UAP topic. Now, obviously, the two biggest points I think of the last week in particular would be we finally got a explanation, if we even want to call it that, of what the drone flap was all about. And I
Mhm.
don't think anybody bought one iota of it.
No.
So we can touch upon that briefly. And then also, there's been a plethora of information that's been coming out regarding Jake Barber and Fred Baker and John Blitz, and then is it Don Bales? I think that are
Sounds
that,
like. I'm
yeah.
not sure.
So John, let's you pick where do you want to start?
Dude, we're at the bottom of a pile of you know what. So I don't know if it matters where we start. Let's just start digging. We got to dig our way out.
Okay, well you break the ground then. Go for it.
Well, I would just like to say that it's almost overwhelming. In the past, we would get a trickle of information, little bits and pieces at a time, and that gives you time to think about it, analyze it, weigh its, potential to be accurate information or false information, and then assimilate it, unpack it, figure out how this fits into whatever narrative you're building that makes sense, and then you file it away. We don't have time to even do that now because there's a hearing, then there's another hearing, and then you're still talking about those two hearings, and then there's a whistleblower, and then there's another interview, and then there's another interview, and then there's an interview with the people supporting the whistleblowers from the first interview, and
Right.
and then you've got a plethora of online, UFO, UAP world people like Jesse Michaels and Area 52, and I mean, you name it, like
Right.
UFO podcast, UFO rabbit hole.
The vetted
Oh,
podcast. Yeah.
their movie came out, their documentary came out, Cosmosis came out,
Cosmosis.
which
Oh,
was
good Lord.
freaking great.
Love
That
that.
people need to go see Cosmosis. Uh,
Yes.
uh, I just spaced the name, Kelly
Kelly Chase
Kelly
and
Chase. I was,
J. Christopher King, right? And
yeah, that was
I know I'm
fantastic.
missing somebody else, but yeah, that's
They did
si-
such a great job.
I actually bought it. It's a 3 episode season, if you will, and I bought it on Amazon just off of a pure rolling the dice, hoping that it would be good because I follow Kelly Chase on
Mhm.
X, and I really like the way she presents herself. We need more people like her
Yep, yep,
in the UFO community, and so
yep,
I rolled the dice and just kind of bought it, and I'm so glad that I did because it's one of the best put together, truly well thought out. They're very articulate, and like you and I, John, they don't adhere to just it's ET, it's aliens. That's all it is. They actually
yep,
make a very compelling case that okay, yeah, some of it may very well be ET or aliens, off planet. But it could also be crypto-terrestrial or ultra-terrestrial, a civilization that's always been here on Earth, at least as long as we have, if not even predating humans on the planet. And they also, I thought that the way that they talked about the interdimensional hypothesis was really, I was kind of taken aback by, but the more I've thought about it, they kind of handled it the best way to do it, which is we don't even really know for sure, we don't have concrete proof that other dimensions exist.
yeah,
Now, mathematically and otherwise, we can say, yes, there's a fairly strong certainty that they do. I myself do believe that other dimensions exist. But the interdimensional hypothesis is kind of like an umbrella catch all for everything that doesn't fit into the ET hypothesis. And we need to be careful about that. And I would agree with that. So yes, the Cosmosis, 3 episodes, fantastic viewing. And I think the way that they presented it, we need more documentaries and more of a focus like that. Seriously, one of the best ones I have ever watched.
yep, agreed. It was great. Oh, and then I forgot about the program.
Right.
Uh, that came out. Um, what else were we missing? The trailer for
Oh my
uh,
gosh, Age of
Disclosure
Disclosure.
came out. So give me a
Uh,
break.
and just so that you know, folks, now obviously John and I, we do know Jay Stratton personally. We play in the band Hitchhiker with Jay. Uh, I guess I should say Jay and Travis allow us to play in the band
Yeah,
with them.
exactly.
So we were every bit as surprised as I think everybody was when Jay has that moment where he says that he has seen with his own eyes NHI craft and NHI beings.
Hmm. Yeah, I told
My
I'm kind of pissed about that.
my
You didn't
jaw
tell us.
just my jaw is still on the ground.
Yep.
So yeah, folks, Jay, because Jay is the kind of man that he is, and because he takes his oaths and his obligations very seriously, he doesn't talk about stuff like that to John or I, and we wouldn't ask him to because John and I are not the kind of guy that would ask him to, share privileged information with us. So
We wait for someone else to ask,
right,
and then we join the conversation.
Micah.
Micah Hanks, get over here. Micah's not
So
afraid to ask anything.
yeah, and so we were we first heard we caught wind of the documentary Age of Disclosure last year from multiple sources, and we knew that if Jay was agreeing to be part of it, it would have to be pretty impressive as far as who was putting it together. And of course, it's the great Dan Farah who has played a role in an awful lot of great documentaries. I believe he was involved in the Phenomena that came out. That I think him and James Fox may have collaborated on. That came out. Gosh, I want to say about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, that was just a couple years ago, but I
Yeah,
can't remember when exactly.
and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think Dan Farah was part of that. And if I got that wrong, then I apologize. Um, but seriously, the folks that have been assembled for this Age of Disclosure documentary, it's not just Jay Stratton. It's about as heavy of a hitter list as you could ever hope to have. It's got Hal Puthoff. It's got let's see, Lou Elizondo is going to be on there, and it's got I I'm just
James
trying to.
Clapper,
Yes,
Chris Mellon, Marco
Chris
Rubio,
Mel.
Kirsten Gillibrand,
Yep,
Tim Chet, uh, Eric Davis.
yep, that's right. I
Well,
forgot Eric
that's
Davis.
just some of them. I mean,
Yeah,
give a freaking break.
and I guarantee you, folks, there's probably even more that are going to be on that documentary that we don't even know about. So, just that little, what is it? Just shy of a 3 minute trailer that's out there. And if, folks, if you haven't seen it, go to YouTube and enter in Age of Disclosure. The only things that we know about it at this time, John, are that it's going to be making its debut at the South by Southwest Festival in March. And so if you have the means to go to South by Southwest, I would jump at that one.
I
And
look at ticket. I thought about getting a ticket until I saw the price, and then I decided I didn't want a ticket. South by Southwest.
yeah, so it's and I don't know. I've heard varying stories of when the wide release is going to take place after it debuts at South by Southwest, but um, for sure, John, it's going to. I think it's going to be a big difference maker when it comes out. I think it's going to be possibly up to this point the most historically significant documentary that's going to be released on this particular subject, and
Yep.
I'm confident in saying that. And folks, I haven't seen anything other than what the rest of the public have seen with this trailer, but just the people that have been whispering in my ear, and Jay Stratton's not one of them, just for the record.
Yep.
Uh, just the people that have been telling me that this documentary is coming. It's all, it's like I was excited when I heard about it last year, but now that I've finally seen the trailer, you know, I'm just chomping at the bit to see what that is. I guarantee you it's going to be great. Guarantee you we're going to be devoting a full episode to Age of Disclosure once it comes out.
At least one. Well,
Yeah,
hell, even if I mean, we read off the names of the people we know that are going to be on it.
yeah,
The only two on there that I really care about. I mean, we've heard from Hal Puthoff before. We've heard from Eric Davis before. We've heard from the politicians on there before, especially Gillibrand and Marco Rubio and Chris Mellon. We've heard more than enough from freaking Lou. But Jay Stratton and James Clapper,
yes,
if the documentary only was those two guys, that would be,
yeah.
I mean, come on.
Well, and I'll be open about it. I'm excited about Eric Davis.
Oh, yeah.
I find Eric Davis one of the most interesting people in this greater broad topic of UFOs and UAPs. Just not just because of his affiliation in the past with Skinwalker Ranch and Bigelow Aerospace, but just reading some of the things that he's talked about. He's just I really like the way his mind works. And if I had a bucket list of people that I would love to meet and shake his hand, Eric Davis would be right there toward the top
I
because
agree.
he seems to be just as geeky about these kind of things, as excited about them as I do. So I actually, in fact, I haven't even watched the Soul Foundation lecture that he gave. That I'm hoping to catch up on that tonight after we wrap this up. But yeah, he's definitely somebody that I'm excited to hear about, hear from.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to dismiss him because he's amazing.
Yeah.
Like every time I hear him speak, I agree with you completely. It's just like, holy cow. this dude and just the way his mind works is really interesting. And he talks about stuff that I'm like, isn't that classified? How can you? That
Yeah,
has to be classified. But he clearly won't say anything that's classified.
yeah,
But then, how does he come out and say, absolutely, we had there's a crash retrieval program, or we have because we have crashed materials, and I was on it in a group. Awesome, we were trying to get some.
yeah,
It was going to be
yep,
transferred to us, and then
yeah,
you know who on in the CIA said no, you can't have it. But I mean, right there, I mean, how is that not classified? I don't understand. Clearly, neither of us are in that world, so
right,
it's I don't know understand what's classified and what isn't. But
yeah.
that's he would be a lot of fun to take out for a few adult beverages for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah,
Because he likes to talk. He enjoys talking.
yeah, he's definitely. If I had like a short list of people that I would love to just be a fly on the wall, or even just simply shake their hand and tell them how much I appreciate the input that they've given over the years, he'd be on that list. I'd still love to meet Hal Puthoff.
Yep.
I'd like to. What's the other guy's name? His name just
Jacques
popped
Vallée.
in.
Toss him in
Uh,
there.
who's that?
Jacques Vallée.
Oh gosh, yes, Jacques Vallée.
Put us all in
Um,
the room with those guys, and
I would like to, and here's one that may throw you off. I would actually like to meet in person and hear a little bit of his story, Whitley Strieber, simply because I have always been the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around is the abduction phenomenon. And the only thing that kind of started me making me think that maybe there was something to this was when I finally met Travis Walton in person. And I got to listen to him face to face, watch his eye movements, watch his body language, and I got to tell you, I 100% believe that if anybody's telling the truth about what happened, it's Travis Walton. I think his story is truly extraordinary, and he's somebody that really kind of opened my mind and made me realize, well, maybe there is something to this abduction phenomena. Now, in Travis's case, it wasn't intentional, right? It was kind of like, in fact, he even says it was more like a case of him being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they basically, they took him to repair him, to bring him back and to fix him up, and then they brought him back. So it wasn't a case where you hear these other ones like the Betty and Barney Hill case where they were taken against their will, or Whitley Strieber and the stuff that he endured.
John
Uh,
Blitch
uh,
in his
yeah,
interview talks about
exactly.
something like that happening, I
And
believe.
another one that is the Pascagoula, Mississippi incident. I always found really fascinating. The two guys that were out fishing and like the two robot like things came in and took them and up in the ship and whatnot. Um,
My favorite is the Terry Lovelace incident, at Devil's Den
right,
story.
right,
I've listened to that audiobook of that twice. It's fascinating.
yeah,
Like it has the feeling of being real. Like it when you hear him telling the story,
hmm,
there's just something about this like this kind of sounds like this is how it would go down. If it
yeah,
had gone down, this sounds like reality. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm not sold on it, but it's compelling.
yeah, yeah. And the jury is still out for me as far as the abduction thing goes. But whereas prior to really getting to know a little bit more about Travis Walton, I was really dismissive of the notion of abductions.
Mhm.
And now I still don't know what to make of him. It's still the one thing about the phenomena overall that I have the most difficult time uh, getting any kind of purchase and reason to, if that makes any sense. But there are some out there that are cases like you mentioned with Terry Lovelace and the Pascagoula, Mississippi, and um, the Travis Walton, and there's still a lot about the Betty and Barney Hill that I find very compelling. So for me, it's not that I completely dismiss it like I used to, but I'm paying more attention to some of those stories than I think I have in the past, and I think that's a good thing. If anything, it shows that the topic is moving forward, and that there is some of these stories are holding up as the years go on, and especially now that we're talking so openly about the phenomenon. I mean, really, I before 2017, I was so not a UAP and UFO guy. I always believed that there was life elsewhere in the universe, but it just was not something that, it'd be fun to talk about at a party maybe, but never really dwelled on it, never really gave it a whole lot of thought other than, well, okay, yeah, Roswell's a nice, it's a nice campfire story, but to me, that's really all that it was. And now that we're learning that this stuff really is real and that the government really does have these programs and has been purposely deceiving us and denying that there's a cover up, we still don't know really one iota of what's truly going on. We have all this astounding anecdotal evidence, right? And we have all this great testimony that's coming out. And now we're finally starting to get firsthand testimony from people that were directly involved in the programs, directly involved in the crash retrievals, directly involved in the research and autopsies, if you will, of the biologics that were recovered in some of these crafts. So just look at how far we've come since 2017. And then, John, let's look at how far we've come just in the last 2 years, right? I mean, we've,
Last 2 weeks, even.
right?
Yeah, but the last 2 years, absolutely. Starting with Grush.
Yeah. Grush was kind of like the tipping point of where things really kind of kicked into high gear. And we've now, since David Grush, um, we've had at least one more congressional hearing devoted specifically to the phenomenon. I don't really count the thing that we did earlier later last year with Kozlowski and Arrow. That wasn't really a hearing. That was more just like
Just a briefing.
just a briefing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
let's do it.
but where we've come so far, then of course the drone flap, and so I guess we can kind of segue a little bit there, John. We had just this last week the Trump administration, bit of a letdown, if I'm being honest. Trump was saying, well, the government knows and the people have a right to know. So once I'm sworn into office, I'm going to reveal what's going on with the drones. And we've all been looking at all of these quote unquote UFO or UAP friendly pro disclosure cabinet members that Trump has appointed, several of whom are still have yet to go through the Senate confirmation process. But we've been getting this a lot of excitement about, okay, this really could happen. The quote unquote disclosure could really be coming our way. And then just kind of, out of nowhere this last week, we get the official White House statement that essentially says, well, nothing to see here. They were ours. The FAA was conducting research and demonstration. And it's like, and we
You
were,
know that's not true.
we
You
know
know it's
that's, we know that's
if
bullshit.
that's all it was. A few weeks ago, the Biden administration, just to get everyone off their backs, would have just said, "Look, we know what they are. This is approved stuff. The FAA is involved. They've approved it. They know what's going on.
Yep.
It's our own stuff. Don't worry about it." And
Well,
they would have used that as an out if they had it.
yeah, and it's like, okay, well then explain to us, number one, why was the airspace, why were these Air Force bases and military bases, why were they shut down for hours at a time because of
Mhm.
the drone incursions? What about the stories of, particularly over in the UK at Lakenheath, where they tried bringing the drones down with, I want to say, I think I heard somebody mention that they tried using an EMP type of device to bring these things down, and they were unsuccessful in doing so. The other technologies that were deployed to try to interfere with them and bring them down, if they were conventional drones, also failed. Then let's talk about the fact that some of these drones were hovering in place for up to 5 to 6 hours. And
Mhm.
we don't even, my understanding from one of the military guys I spoke to, said that none of even our combat drones have a battery life that, can extend that far. So, uh, so much of what the statement from the White House said just simply does not even begin to answer the questions that most of us had regarding what these drones were. Now, in fairness, John, both you and I, if I'm not mistaken, we did say that we're pretty certain that this was all man-made technology, or at least the overwhelming majority of the drones that were being cited. There was nothing really anomalous going on, just like with UAPs.
Yeah,
People
I agree
report
for the
UAPs
most
and
part. Yeah.
yeah,
There were
95 or
a
more
couple of
percent.
videos I saw. There are a couple of videos I saw that were like, okay, that's kind of intriguing,
Yeah.
but you don't have the provenance. You don't know where it came from. You don't
Right.
know who filmed it. You know,
Hmm.
if you don't have that data, it's not entirely worthless. It's still
Right.
worthwhile, but
Yeah.
it's still it's not good evidence.
Right.
And most of the other stuff that I could see was like, yeah, that's an out of focus star. That's an out of focus street light on the on mountain
Precisely.
there. That's
Yeah.
a an out of focus helicopter. It's
Yeah.
like people with their phones at night are having a lot of trouble focusing on stuff.
Yeah.
You know, but
And
yeah,
that comes with both an upside and a downside. The upside is now you have broken through the mainstream consciousness, if you will, and people are paying attention to the fact that UAPs are real, right? But the downside of that is, like you just said, you get a lot of people that are taking these images with their iPhone or their Android, and something that looks like, if you're not educated on what to look for on these things. Now, being Skinwalker Ranch insiders, we know what to look for when it comes to orbs and things like that. And all these images that were put out there saying, "Oh, this is an orb. Check it out. It's pulsing." And it's like you're looking at a star or something it's just a
yeah.
digital artifact that your camera
Venus.
makes. I mean, it's
You're looking at Venus.
yeah, it looks really cool. And if you want to, I mean, it looks like it could be an orb and something anomalous, but the reality is it's not.
Yeah,
Now, that's not to say that some of the stuff that was seen could not have been genuinely anomalous. And I think in at
right.
least a handful of circumstances, from what I've read from very credible sources, says that there were indeed some truly anomalous sightings that cannot be explained away prosaically as being, drones and
Yep.
whatnot.
There's
So,
some I follow on Blue Sky who I trust. He's in the UFO community. I don't want to say his name just because I don't want to get anyone to hassle him, but he's like, I know what I'm looking at. I see these things. He's in New Jersey. He's like, I see these things every night. He's
right,
like, it's so bad here, I might have to move.
yeah,
He's like, I see them every night. You can't tell me they're
right,
not real and out there. I'm like, I'm watching them every night. It's like they're not planes, they're not
yeah,
helicopters, they're not normal drones. This
yeah,
is something else. And without seeing
yeah.
them, the video of it just doesn't do them justice. Oh, but then speaking of the pile of information, totally forgot to mention the Cybertruck bomber dude
Oh yeah.
whose quote unquote manifesto says that this is U.S. anti-gravitic technology. You know,
Hmm. Chinese, yeah,
yeah, exactly, right. And then
yeah,
I've seen some other people say this is a ramp up to a war between us and the aliens. I'm like,
right.
um,
And that's what it comes down to,
you
folks.
know,
Just like John said, you want to try to find yourself in the middle of all of that nonsense. On one side, you've got the people that no matter what it is, they're only going to see aliens because that's what their confirmation bias tells them that it is, and then it's the only thing that it can be. And then you have the other extreme where they're like, "Oh, this is all perfectly normal, perfectly, rational explanation for everything," when in fact the truth is probably right smack dab in the middle. There's probably a little bit of what they're saying and a little bit of what they're saying,
yep,
but that's not just like with the UAP topic itself. It's not one size fits all when it comes to explanation.
yep. And
So,
I still can't shake the feeling that we're being played. Like there is it deep in my gut. I feel like the UFO flap combined with this flood of whistleblowers and this flood of information just still does not sit right with me. I
Yeah.
can't put my finger on exactly why, other than 100% of it is unverifiable to us. You know,
Yeah.
like literally, we can't personally verify any of this
Right.
information. So,
Right.
but I just feel like, there's the phrase "follow the money." Who
Hmm.
benefits?
Right.
It it seems like a lot of the people that this benefits that are pro disclosure also happen to be involved in businesses that will benefit by this technology. Whether it's they will benefit by we're being invaded by aliens and we need advanced tech to fight them, or whatever it is. There's 100 different angles that this could take,
Right. Yeah.
but it's just it's kind of hard to suss that out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, obviously there's
Well,
people
that's
that we trust,
and
but
that's kind of
still,
what. Yeah.
it's I think there's multiple people with and multiple groups with different ulterior motives or potential ulterior motives.
Right.
And I can't figure out how all these pieces fit together.
It really is difficult to try to figure out which end is up, right? Yeah, and I completely agree with you on that because, and I really, again, there's this well-known debunker, pseudo journalist, who likes to refer to anybody that takes an active interest in this as part of the UFO cult, the religious cult of UFO, right? And but he's not far off the mark with some people. And for proof of that, all you got to do is just look at, and I'm not saying I dislike the guy, but Dr. Stephen Greer, okay, it has truly become, from my perspective, a lot of what it's almost like become a religious cause to him. Now, I'm sure that he would counter that by saying, "Whoa, not so fast, flat top." He would probably say, "Sorry,
Yeah, right.
thank you, folks. I'll be here all week. Try the veal." But it was, he's just passionate about wanting to get the truth out there. But the question is it his truth or is it truth as he can verify it? Because initially I was all in on what Stephen Greer was putting out there. And particularly, 20 years or so, we owe him a serious debt of gratitude because he really started this disclosure movement on its way. And for that, we all owe him serious gratitude. But somewhere along the way, it seems, and again, I've never met the guy, so I don't know what kind of a person he is, but it seems that he wants this to be about him being the guy. He has to be the guy that brings it all out to us. He's the only person who's authorized to tell us what the truth is. And if it doesn't come from him and his team, then we should automatically be suspicious of anybody else that comes forward.
Right.
And that to me, and I really hate to use the N word, not that N word, but it seems a bit narcissistic to me, the way that he brings himself out. And again, I know that it sounds like I'm really being mean and nasty to him, but I'm not trying to be. That's not my intention. It's just that I'm complete. I try to be as objective as I can in what I report on. And folks, like John said the last time he and I did a podcast, we reserve the right to change our minds as new information and new data comes out. And
Yep.
trust me, if something comes out and Greer had it right, you better believe I'm going to say, you know what, Dr. Greer, shame on me for not realizing it.
I
I
will
will,
always give credit where it's due.
exactly,
Someone I dislike, like the journalist, the alleged journalist you just mentioned, he
right,
gets stuff right occasionally. I'll be like,
right.
hey, he
I
got it
just,
right.
I just
Totally
gave a,
agree.
I
You
just
know?
gave a tip of my hat to him,
Exactly. Yep.
so, and that's kind of the way we have to approach this overall, John, is there's going to be people. It's unavoidable because it's human nature. Everybody's going to have an agenda of some kind. Everybody's going to have a confirmation bias of some kind. There are some people like the old debunker Philip Klass, who everything, even if you presented it to him in irrefutable proof, even if the spaceship landed right on his front lawn, he would still find a way to say, well, no, that's what this really is. I'd like to believe it, but I can't. And you can't do anything for people that are so entrenched in what they want to believe. And you can debate till the cows come home as to whether or not Philip Glass was, one of these was paid by the DoD or on the take from somebody. And you could make the same allegation against some of the other current day debunkers as well, and a lot of people have. Um, but you want to maintain something that you always talk about, John. Maintain that skepticism, but with an open mind. You
Right.
know, go and this is the reason people ask me so much. Why do I shill so much for Skinwalker Ranch? Well, it's simple, folks, because Skinwalker Ranch, they are truly going where the data leads them. They form their hypothesis and then they gather the data, they analyze it, and then they say, okay, this is what we're seeing, and here is why we're forming this particular hypothesis. And when they get it wrong, they always admit that they get it wrong. And you have to have integrity like that if you want to be taken seriously and if you want to move the field forward. And again, Skinwalker Ranch, Dr. Taylor, Eric Bard, and Jim Royston, the guys from Omnitech that are out there. Such a fantastic and phenomenal team that Brandon Fugel has put together. To say nothing of Caleb and Dragon and Tom Winterton, Jay Stratton, and all the folks that go out and help on the ranch from time to time. Uh, that's kind of that to me has been kind of like the mold that I try to hope that everybody else follows, where there's so many people that just want to jump to one conclusion because it's the hip, it's the cool, it's the sexy conclusion, it's the interesting one. But you know what, sometimes maybe it's not, because the data doesn't point you that way. And if you're not following where the data goes in a scientific investigation, then why are you trying to present it as truth when really at the end of the day, if you don't have the data to back it up, it's just your opinion.
Yeah.
um, so that's where it's crucial to have an open mind and to be skeptical, right, John? You have to.
Well, I think everybody you just mentioned was skeptical about the ranch until they experienced
Right,
something at the ranch that they couldn't explain.
right,
I don't think any of them were quote unquote, believers
right.
in any of this stuff necessarily before they got there. And then they had their minds changed. And now they're like, okay, let's try to figure out what the hell this is. And they're trying with their limited budget, trying to figure out a way to, figure out what experiments you can even run to
Right.
nail it down. That's the hard part
Yeah,
initially. The first few
yeah,
seasons gave people a weird impression, but that's because they
yeah.
didn't have a lot of money and they didn't even know what experiments to run. I mean, it was
Right,
by luck that they found signals coming from the sky that shouldn't be there,
right,
and then just stuff just eventually piles up until now they're like, okay, they
right.
probably have more experiments to run than they have time for and money for.
Yeah,
But that's because they stuck to it. But
yeah,
they were all skeptical ahead of time, but open minded. They're like, okay, that's freaking weird. That shouldn't be happening, but it just happened.
yeah.
So, what experiments can we run? What science can we do to figure that out? And I
Go
think that's the
back, go back
everyone.
and watch. Go back and watch the first episode of season 1 of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, and look at the. You can see it on Travis Taylor's face when I think it's Tom Winterton says the ranch reacts, the ranch responds whenever somebody new comes on the property, and Travis is like, "What? Okay, you guys are drinking some kind of Kool-Aid. I don't know what's going on here."
He's like,
And by his
he's
own
like,
admission,
just a place.
yeah, how many times? I mean, and Travis has said, and this is me kind of paraphrasing, but essentially, Travis is like he was expecting to get on the ranch and to find some kind of perfectly mundane and prosaic explanation, if nothing else, maybe some bad actors that were playing some tricks on people. But Travis found out in the same way that Tom Winterton and Caleb Bench and Eric Bard and everybody else that had been on the ranch before Travis that got to experience what's going on out there. And to their credit, John, we're now going into the sixth season. It is supposed to be airing this spring sometime. My guess is April or May. Is when the new season of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch will air. And to their credit, John, they have never come out and said, okay, folks, we are dealing with A, B, C, and D. Instead, they're just simply calling it what they should, which is the phenomena. There is some kind of intelligence, if not multiple intelligences, that are at play out there at the ranch. They've never come flat out and said, okay, we're dealing with extraterrestrials and we know it. They've never said we're dealing with, time travelers from the future, or anything else of that nature. And
It's a set of phenomena that they can't explain.
right,
That's really all they have is like, here's this. I think George Knapp in the first Hunt for the Skinwalker book referred to as like a veritable menu of
yeah,
paranormal. Like you want
yeah.
big, you want cryptids, you want uh, dire wolves, you want orbs, you want UFOs, you want
Poltergeist activity. Yep.
poltergeists, you want stuff disappearing and then being returned later. Do you want the predator style invisible things moving through the trees? Like,
Right.
here you go. You have all of it in one location. You
Right.
know,
It's like a paranormal Disneyland is the way I've heard
kind
a
of
lot of
is.
people describe it. And but whatever quote unquote it is, it's very real out there at Skinwalker Ranch. Just like this UAP phenomenon or UFO phenomenon, whatever it is. And I think the answer is that there are multiple answers, multiple its, if you will. Um, Whatever it or its are, it and they are very real. And it's just a matter of time until we put more of those pieces of the puzzle together. And that to me is what's exciting about everything that's going on right now, John. Because, like you were saying, it seems like every day there's some new podcast or there's some new whistleblower coming forward where we get maybe a little different glimpse of something that maybe hasn't been mentioned before. And then it's a matter of figuring out, okay, how credible and reliable is the source that's bringing this out? Are they prone to theatrics and over dramatization and sensationalizing? Um, or is this somebody who carries themselves with such a laid back and cool demeanor, if you will, that maybe we should be paying a little closer attention? And so again, you take a look at the personalities, and folks, there's no ultimate guaranteed way to tell who's telling the truth or not, because we live in an age now where the truth for a lot of people is subjective, right? So I like to take a look at and take into consideration who the people are, how they present themselves, and is this person out there trying to make a buck? All right, and it's not to say, I mean, we live in a capitalist society. I'm not going to begrudge anybody that wants to make a few bucks as long as they're going about it honestly, right?
Absolutely.
As long as they're not willfully deceiving and fabricating things that they're presenting as factual evidence.
Right.
And unfortunately, this particular field is fraught and replete
Mhm.
with examples and cases where people have just outright deceived and made stuff up out of whole cloth, sold it as the truth, and people bought it in droves. And that kind of plays into why it's not difficult to understand why people like this pseudo journalist, whose name shall remain unnamed, why they are so antagonistic towards people like these people that are coming forward now. Uh, people like Jake Barber, like Lou Elizondo, like any of the other whistleblowers, David Grush, Ryan Graves, David Fravor, any of these people that have come forward that have had experiences. Um, it's easy to understand why they're a little bit adversarial about the whole thing, because it's difficult to wrap your head around. And like you said, John, it's hard to not feel like we're being played.
Well,
Simple.
yeah, exactly. There's here's the problem that okay, so you have this giant puzzle that we're trying to put together. And when you hear so many different stories, all of which can't be true at the same time, means someone is either wrong and thinks they're correct, or they're lying to you.
Right.
And if they're lying to you, they might be lying to you for a number of different reasons. But then you're stuck with like, okay, which one of them is lying? Which one of them is wrong?
Right.
We have no way to know, you know. And then you've got the obvious hucksters like uh, Courtney Brown at Farsight Institute with their remote viewing. They're in contact with the aliens every day, and they've got ships on the way. And then you've got Jeremy Corbell saying they're going to tell you, the government's going to tell you that there's a ship on the way, and it's coming here in 2027 or something, and that's a lie. There's just all these different things out there, and of
Yeah.
course Courtney Brown shouldn't be believed. But that's my problem. Is the core problem is we have zero way of verifying any of these stories.
Right.
So it's the only thing we can do is like which ones plausibly fit into a timeline that makes sense. And I'm at the point where there's so much coming out, I don't have time to sort through all this and figure it out. Like even
Yeah.
Barber, that story sounds plausible.
Yeah.
He's got people backing him up,
He's got a lot of impressive people that
but
are going to bat for him.
at the same time, none of them are corroborating his story. They're backing him up as a person.
Right.
They're not saying, yeah, I worked with them on that team. That's totally accurate. And we've talked about this before. His
Yeah.
DD-214 shows him attending CCT or starting out, CCT, and then dropping out and becoming an aircraft mechanic. That's like someone going to SEALs training and failing out, which happens all the time. That's no shame in that. And then going off and doing something else.
Right.
That's all his DD-214 shows. That bothers me, and it's going to bother me until someone with experience says, no, what he says is actually true. If he did get recruited by this other group, they would make it look like that. That's totally legit. That's what everyone thinks, and it might absolutely be the case. But I'm just using it as an example of something we can't verify. We have no way to verify that, so there's too much of that right now. Lots of people talking, lots of very intriguing and compelling stories, but basically none of it verifiable. So
Well, it doesn't.
and then hold it tentatively back here until we hear more, and
Yeah.
at some point the pieces will fall into place. We'll know that person was lying, that person was lying, that person was lying, but these three people were here. They were telling the truth.
Yeah.
Jettison the lies, put the truth tellers in. Okay, now the timeline actually makes sense. Now I get it.
Yeah.
At some point that will happen, maybe. But
Well, and one of the things that complicates this whole disclosure and getting to the truth is that we're living in a time where I would wager people distrust their government more than at any other time. Speaking of, Americans and the U.S. government, um, there's a lot of people that don't trust their own religion if they belong to a particular organized religion. There's a lot of
yep.
people that are questioning whether or not they believe in whatever denomination or deity that they choose to believe in. So part of the big downside to all of this is that, again, what is truth anymore, and how do we really get to the bottom of it? And that's why for me, I try to focus as much as I can on the character of the people and the way that they present themselves. That these, by the people, I mean the people that are coming forward and presenting these things. Because in the case of like a Jake Barber, um, when you've got people like Gary Nolan who are going to bat for this guy and saying, yes, he's credentials do stand up and all this other stuff, but
Yep.
like you said, nobody specifically is corroborating the actual stories and accounts that Jake has given. But
Right.
as far as him being who he says he is, some pretty impressive people are vouching and saying, yes, he really is this kind of guy. He really is the kind of guy that would have and could have been involved in these type of secret programs with the TS, SCI level clearances, Q clearances, whatever the terminology is. But um, so yeah, it's difficult to again to figure out which end is up and to find out who is it's
Well, even I didn't know this until I watched the Colonel Blitch interview, that it was Dave Grush that introduced Barber and those guys to John Blitch,
right.
because Grush was trying to get them to come forward and they didn't want to. And I don't know, Grush must have known Blitch somehow because of his background in psychology, maybe. I have no idea, or neuroscience, I mean. Um, but for some reason, Grush wanted them to meet Blitch, and that's how that all came about. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's an interesting curve to that. Like, okay,
Hmm.
it didn't just come out of nowhere. Grush actually was playing matchmaker, and I kind of trust Dave Grush. I mean, I've never met the guy, but I, as far as we know, we have no reason not to trust Dave Grush.
Right. Grush is one of those people that
He's one
I
so far that I'm like, I
yeah,
trust that guy so
yeah,
far.
so far. Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree. I
So
agree.
that's another. You've got him. You've got Gary Nolan, like you said, and these other guys. Even if they're not corroborating his story, they are lending support.
Right.
And after a while, you're like, okay, there's probably
Oh,
something to this, but you know me.
well,
I don't
and
trust anybody.
yeah,
Been burned too many times to trust people. So,
it's hard not to become jaded. I mean, I swore
yeah.
when Roger and I started this podcast, going on, gosh, 3 years ago now. Um, I swore that I would never become one of those jaded guys that started out being all gung ho on wanting to learn as much as I could about, you know, all the unexplained phenomena that are out there. And here I find myself in 2025. I'm still excited. I'm still excited to be a participant and a spectator watching all this stuff unfold. But at the same time, there are some aspects of it that have made me extremely jaded when you find out exactly how much duplicity goes on and how much willful and otherwise kind of deception that goes on. Um,
Mhm.
it's really hard not to get disheartened
It is.
when you're just a regular guy like me or like you. We don't hold government jobs. We don't, we're not astrophysicists or anything like that. I mean, I'm a
You don't know how any of this actually works.
right.
We
I mean,
truly don't. So I
I'm
mean, we have to
I'm
admit that.
lucky to be able to put coherent sentences together. Um,
I rarely do.
so I'm right there with you, John. It's hard to remain positive, and the one thing that allows me to do that is the fact that I have met a lot of people in this topic that do give me reason to have hope that we will find out and solve some of these puzzle pieces. People that I believe truly are advocates for getting the truth out there. And we've
Mhm.
already mentioned the names of some of them. At the tip
Yep.
top of that list is Jay Stratton.
Yep.
I just have so much respect for the guy. Just the way that he carries himself. He's somebody that commands respect. The way that he just the way that he carries himself and presents himself. He's somebody that that he's not going to say something unless there's a need to say it, and he can back up what he says. He's not somebody who's given to flights of fancy and things like that. Um, I trust guys again like Gary Nolan, David Grush, Ryan Graves. I think is doing a phenomenal job trying to protect the airspace and the skies around us. Um, it's people like that that are trying to not beating the drum loudly saying, "Hey, listen to me, look at me over here." It's the people that are just going about it quietly and doing as much as they can the right way, following all the proper legal channels if they happen to be a government person, either currently active or formerly active, retired, whatever the case may be. So those are the people that I pay the closest attention to because those are the people that I'm automatically going to have a little more I'm going to give them a little more leeway with the things that they say and present than somebody like a Dr. Greer who's bangs the drum very loudly, like, hey, look at what I'm doing. Look at all
Hmm.
this great stuff that I've done. Oh, and by the way, buy my CE5. I mean, again, I'm never going to begrudge anybody for wanting to monetize
No,
what they're doing. That's,
no, maybe
hell, if I could monetize this podcast, I would, but this is,
right.
after all, the cheap ass, no frills podcast. So you're stuck with what you get, folks. Sorry. But, but yeah, it's just, there are people out there that I think are trying to make a difference. And I'm even going to cut Greer the slack and saying, I do think he's trying to make a positive difference. But there's a right way to reach people in a more theatrical way, and I think he's taken the more grandiose route. And I have to give Lou some credit. I actually watched a podcast, the Area 52 podcast, the first time I ever watched it. Just a couple of nights ago, Lou was on, and I was actually really impressed with the way that Lou presented himself and the way he spoke about things. Um, Probably one of the best interviews that I've seen Lou give, and one of the best interviewers as well. I mean, the guy
Yeah, the
was
guy's
asking
good.
him great
Yeah,
questions. So, no
he's a
idea who the guy
magician.
is. Yeah, yeah, he's a
He's a magician.
magician,
A
not a
magician.
musician, a
Not a
magician.
magician. A magician. Yeah, he's a
Right.
magician who transitioned into the UFO topic,
Yep.
and then now this is what he does. He's doing a great job.
Did a fantastic job. So, again, folks, it all comes down to that important thing that we talked about just a short while ago of having an open mind, but also approaching it with a healthy dose of skepticism. You should demand data when people are giving conclusions. Demand they show you how they arrived at that conclusion. You know, just like in the old days. I can't speak to what kids in school now are because it's been forever and a day since I've been in a classroom. But when I was coming up and in my math classes in junior high and high school and college, I had to show my work when I was in a math class. I had to, it wasn't enough to just simply give the answer. You had to show how you arrived at that answer. And that's how it should be whenever we have somebody that's coming to us and saying, okay, I've got some truly astounding information to present, and here it is. Well, okay, show us. And that applies to whether it's Skinwalker Ranch, Blind Frog Ranch, or Chris Bledsoe,
Yep.
or you name it, Mount Wilson Ranch, any of these places. Show us the data. Show us
Mhm.
how you arrived. It's great that you had the experience. Nobody's ever going to discount the experience because experiences are usually by nature a very singular, very individualized thing. So whenever possible, you have to show data that corresponds and correlates to what you're claiming. And if you can't do that, then okay, it's a great story. It's a very compelling story that you're telling, but how do you expect me to connect the dots if you can't show me how you connected the dots? And
Right.
I really wish more people would do that. And again, there are people out there that are doing that. And again, yes, I'm a shill for Skinwalker Ranch and proud of the fact, but that's what they do, and that's one of the things that I appreciate about them so much is that they allow us to come on this journey and they say, okay, here's where we are today, and here's how we got here. Here's where we want to go tomorrow, and this is what we are hoping to get from it. And again, watch the transition, the evolution of Travis Taylor from that very first episode in season one, and then go back and watch any of the episodes from season five, season four, and you'll see that Travis Taylor now realizes that there truly is something astounding, truly unexplained, and truly extraordinary going on out there on that 512-acre bit of land out there in the Uinta Basin known as Skinwalker Ranch. So that's where I am right now, John. I'm still excited as we're now heading into February. I think there's a good momentum behind the UAP uh, topic and field. I'm excited about the upcoming season of Skinwalker Ranch. I'm excited
Be
about
good.
PhenomeCon,
Yep.
and who knows, folks? There may even be some news about at least one, or I would like to hope for more Hitchhiker live performances. I know that we've been talking as a band about trying to do some more things to get together and do another performance. So hopefully
Yep.
that will materialize as well. So that's kind of where I'm at, John. I'm still excited. It's kind of like information overload right now
Right.
with all the stuff coming out. But thankfully, we're seeing more and more media outlets, even mainstream legacy media outlets, are starting to pay real, legitimate attention to this topic. And because of that, it's all the more reason that we are patient. Those of us that have followed this field and know some of the legacy stories, the background of where this field has been and where it's come from, the vast majority of people in the United States and probably elsewhere have no idea of the things that we know because we're geeks about this kind
Mhm.
of thing. So we
Yep.
have to be patient. We have to accept the fact that these people, these are things that for a lot of them are still a tremendous stretch to be making for even being remotely possible. And so when people start begin to realize, holy cow, this topic that I used to think was all a bunch of kooks and nuts and freakazoids, there's actually some really genuine, legitimate stuff going on that is really a mystery. And heaven forbid, what if, John? We're still in the what if phase, but what if some of these extraordinary claims are true? What if we are able to get confirmation that these crash retrieval programs do exist? That we have recovered biological beings that are of non human origin? That right there should be the biggest news in the history of humanity, right? Because that would answer the question, are we alone in the universe or not? And that's a pretty big existential question that a lot of people struggle with. So I still have hope. It's hard not to get frustrated and hard to get jaded. And yes, I'm getting more jaded as the days go on, but
I'm
that could.
rubbing off on you is what's happening.
You're rubbing off on me, John, you crusty old bastard.
I am a crystal.
but but it's I think it's healthy for us to talk about things like this to help us, vent if nothing else, and say, hey, this, like we were talking about cosmosis. There's great things out there to get excited about. I'm excited about the upcoming season of Skinwalker Ranch. Brandon Fugel just announced that there's going to be new episodes for Beyond Skinwalker Ranch. So I think folks know that I'm not quite as all in on Beyond Skinwalker Ranch as I am the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, but still, it's new stuff to watch. There's a new season that just began for Expedition Bigfoot, which
Yep.
I'm looking forward to getting into those episodes. And our very dear friend Jeff Freeman is covering all kinds of great topics on his J Free 906 podcast. Of course, he's in the thick of it with the Curse of Oak Island right now, but he's also doing the Expedition Bigfoot and the Freeman Files, where he talks about treasure hunting. And once the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch season 6 starts up, I guarantee you Jeff's going to be handling that as well. And John, you and I and Roger, when Roger gets back, we're going to start doing the Beyond Skinwalker Ranch recaps as well, and having fun analyzing those.
Yep. Got
so,
a
so
lot of
there's
work
no
ahead of us.
no shortage of things to do, and so closing thoughts or remarks, John. Any where is there anything that we missed? Anything you want to mention? Give any shout outs to?
Oh, I think we covered everything.
I
And I'm going to try to be less crusty in the future. We talked about that before we started. I'm working on it. It's a work in progress. I'm trying
yes,
to be less jaded and less angry about everything. But you know,
yep,
today is not that day.
yep. And in case you're wondering, folks, yes, I'm happy to show off my new choppers. So it's
Pretty cool.
I gotta tell you, folks, it's nice to have a complete smile again. I know my face is still ugly as sin. Can't do anything about that, but it's been a challenge to to eat with these things because I went for so long, and of course from the surgery everything is still kind of a little on the tender side. But today I made my family a nice pot roast for dinner, and for the first time since I had the surgery, and at least the first time since I put the new set of teeth in, I was able to eat completely pain free today. So that's definitely positive
Good sign.
progress. Speaking
Yep.
speaking of positive progress, so
Right.
it's nice. I can actually smile and not feel bad about it. So that's something that I'm happy to look forward to. And I would like to extend my sincerest thanks and gratitude to all of our subscribers and my fellow Skinwalker Ranch insiders that reached out to me while I was out dealing with my surgery. Thank you so much for thinking of me. Thanks for all the wonderful prayers and kind thoughts that so many of you sent my way. I really appreciate it. So, with that, folks, we'll be back very soon with another episode of The Soul of the Unexplained. Who knows what we'll talk about next, but guarantee you it's going to be fun. And again, the cheap ass, no frills podcast, which I think is kind of going to be our unofficial name of The
Hmm.
Soul of the Unexplained. But still hoping that Roger gets back with us soon. He was hoping to join us today, and we're hoping he's back on the saddle with us very soon. And looking forward to getting Caleb Hanks back on here. And who knows, John, maybe we can get both Caleb and Micah on here sometime.
Would
And
be fun
then
to do.
and then you and I think what you and I need to do is you and I need to build out that music and the unexplained aspect of the podcast. We'll have to
That
start
would be
kind of
fun.
like a start up our own thing. We'll get some of our musician buddies, and who knows, maybe we can get some of our other hitchhiker bandmates to talk about some music. I know Dr. Taylor would love to. In fact, Travis has mentioned he'd love to talk about music sometime. So all that stuff hopefully we'll be getting to you guys here in the very near future. But with that, just want to wish everybody a very pleasant week. Hope you guys are all doing well. Just love one another, take care of one another. Be nice to bunnies because some people are dog people. I love dogs. Some people like cats. I like bunnies. I'm a bunny guy. My family raised bunnies when I was a kid, and just always kind of had a soft spot for bunnies in my heart. So be nice to bunnies out there, and listen to some good music. Listen to find. In fact, I challenge all of you folks out there. Look for some kind of new music, some maybe an artist that you've never heard from, never heard of before,
Token.
and Sleep Token is a great place to start. I definitely recommend Sleep Token. There's a great band that Mr. Nyberger here turned me on to. And yeah, there's just all kinds of great music out there. And folks, some of the best music you will ever hear, you will never hear on mainstream corporate radio. So
Yep.
just go out there and find it because it's there. And once you find it, you're going to love it. And if you like indie rock and synth pop, electronic music, check out my show, The Soul of Synth Pop. And I, I know that most of you know about that, but I play a lot of indie bands, indie rock, indie synth pop, synth wave, electro pop, and all kinds of great stuff. So just find something that you like to do and do it as often as you can. And life kind of sucks for a lot of people right now for a lot of reasons, whether it's the economy, politics, whatever the case may be. Just know that people are going through a struggle the same as you are, and maybe try to be a little more patient and tolerant and understanding whenever we come across situations or people that really get under our skin. And just learn to take a deep breath and try to find ways to not only lift yourself up but lift others up as well, because we need more of that. We need more positive reinforcement and more coming together instead of tearing each other down. And I firmly
Amen.
truly believe that because everybody out there brings something of value. Everybody matters. They really truly do. And don't buy into the negativity that some people are selling. Just try to do your best. Be the best version of you that you can be. Try to be better than you were yesterday, and try to rise above the things that make you angry. That's the other little bit of sage advice that I'll leave with you. And I'll step down from my soapbox with that and just encourage everybody to eat more tacos because tacos are awesome. And you cannot have a bad day when you're eating tacos. scientific fact. Absolutely. So with that, folks, John, thank you again. Always a pleasure and joy to have you on. Love
Anytime,
chatting with you.
brother.
You always have such wonderful insights that you share. And folks, John and I will see you next time right here on The Soul of the Unexplained. See ya.